All right, welcome everybody. This is Ted Young, and I'd like to welcome you all to the next episode of our Raptoni Magic webinar series. And today we are going to be talking about ListMaker and the ability to automatically add things to ListMaker and incorporate it into your Internet member services. And I am joined today by Diane Clem.
Hi, everyone.
And Frank Rittersdorf.
Hello.
And we are coming to you from beautiful Simi Valley. And in fact, we're coming from our multimedia room, and that's a picture of us. And Frank is on the right, Diane next to him. I'm sitting there in the middle. And then in addition, we have Mark Boatman and Sabrina Freilich, who help us put the webinar together. So they're not with us literally in the room here right now, but they're certainly with us in spirit.
Well, the version that we're working in is we're always going to work on the newest version of Magic, and that is 9.28.13. And then to ensure that you have the most efficient use of Magic, we recommend that you go ahead and call our support team, and we will schedule for a free upgrade.
That's right. And we in particular want you to know this because there may be a few of the screens you look at in the course of the webinar that may not match what you have. And if they don't, it's probably because you're on an older version. So with that, I'm going to go back to Frank and the overview.
Like Ted had mentioned, we are going to go ahead and we're talking about the ListMaker. This is the second part of our three-part series in the webinars for ListMaker. Last session we talked about the basics of ListMaker. Today we're talking about ListMaker and utilizing the merge and the IMS. And in 2 weeks, make sure you make it to our advanced application session we like to call Ted's Trick.
Yeah, you got to hang on to hear what that is.
That's right.
But today, so let's get in what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to first touch on review. We're going to get our brains in the ListMaker mindset. And then we're going to go into merge. And we're going to talk about how to auto-populate a large group of members by performing a merge and adding it to the list. So we're going to auto-populate them to a list. And then we're going to talk about IMS, or Internet Member Services, and we're going to talk about the basic setup, how the members can input it, and also how they can get an output like through searches. So, okay, let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, first let's review. Last time we talked about what is ListMaker, and as Ted said earlier, ListMaker is the custom field maker. Any piece of criteria you would like to keep track of with regard to your membership that is not already a field in Magic can be added to a list. A member can be added to a list that is that piece of criteria, and you can pull information from there. This is our membership bucket. This is our animation from last time. We're going to carry it forward because it's so clever. And last time
so all these little people in here represent your database, your members.
That's right.
And as you can see, they're not very organized. They're just kind of a mess. What do we want to organize them, Diane?
They are all over the place. Well, first I want to review what we did last time, which was we created a list of members who had come in and provided fingerprints to an association. And the reason for that was to provide an added measure of security to people who are opening their homes to open houses in the selling process.
And as a reminder, too, this was a real case scenario that one of our customers was doing. Again, they were just working on enhancing the perception of security, the fact that they had background, they had fingerprints on agents, so that buyers and sellers didn't have to worry about their possessions mysteriously disappearing.
That's right.
So, but of course, in the course of having to manage that process, they needed to know who had done it.
That's
so
right.
Back to ListMaker.
Back to ListMaker. We created a category, security, and a code, which is print for fingerprints, and we pulled a selection of members who had actually come in and provided their fingerprints. So we now know who has given their fingerprints. But how do we know who is required to give their fingerprints and who has actually not given their fingerprints?
So the question we're asking now, who is required to give their fingerprints? And in this case, with our bucket of our database, and this is actually our bucket of all of our active realtors. So in this case, we want all of our active realtors to bring in their fingerprints.
Okay, excuse me. So in other words, before, what we were doing is just tracking those people who we had the fingerprints or the information for, but now if we need to find the people who haven't, we didn't have any way of doing it.
Exactly.
So what we really needed to do was get everybody on that list and somehow be able to tell the difference between who had and who hadn't.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
great.
right. Oh. There we go, and that's exactly how we do it. It's the date field within that list.
And the date field is very useful because you can have a date set to a 0 value, which indicates the person has not come in, and then as they come in, you change the date manually to reflect the date they came in and the fact that they did provide their fingerprints.
Which answers our question, who has given their fingerprints?
I see. And so we can use ListMaker to do all that stuff.
This is all ListMaker and utilizing the merge at the same time.
Oh, good. Well, that merge part's important because I thought you were going to tell me I had to go in and my 3,000 members, one by one, add them all to this list.
And that's not what we're saying, Ted.
Good,
The
good.
merge
Great.
is going to help it, a nice, swift, easy way of doing that.
Great.
So again, using the merge to auto-populate a list. And so the steps are basically perform a merge and add them to a list. Add the results to a list. So let's take a look at that in Magic. First thing I want to show us is I want to go to our fingerprints list by list form. Because for the people that were here the last session, you remember that we added Carol Barker to that list manually. We just want to show you there's nothing up our sleeve. And that Carol Barker is the only one on this particular list.
Okay, so there's our list. One person on it, Carol Barker. But we want everybody on that list.
Exactly.
Okay.
So let's show how we do that. We're going to go into the merge, membership, member merge, and we're going to perform a merge. So we're going to start with the association. Like we said before, we want all active realtors, so we're going to make sure that the member status is active. We're going to go into the bill type. I'm going to zoom in, and now you can see that all of our realtor bill types are in the multiple billing type selector. So I'm just going to hit done because it's everyone's in there that I want, and I'm just...
Excuse me for a second, Frank. I just wanted to emphasize, we're doing one scenario here. Of course, the merge is a very powerful search, and you can put any number of different criteria in there to get whatever set you want. This is just the set we're using for our example, active realtors.
Keep it nice and simple.
That's right.
So we're going to continue. Now, for this demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and get preferred media so we can get all the available members, active members.
That's right. In other words, it doesn't actually, when we're running this merge, we're not going to be using the conventional merge output file. We're simply using the merge for one of its other features, which is the add to a list.
Exactly. And so we're going to go ahead and kind of skip these sections and go right to add list maker list. So I'm just going to make that check in the box. I'm going to add our category, which is SCRT for security and PRNT for prints. Now this last field, I want to make sure I set the status. It's basically what status do I want the members to be on this list? And we said active, so we want them to be active on this list, and I'm going to continue. Not only is it performing or adding it to the list, but if you did want to use it, it is actually going through creating the merge file as well. So we have 111 members. Now let's go back to our member list by list.
You mean the one with one person on it?
That's
with
right.
just one person. But
Okay,
let's...
so we're going to go there, and we're only going to see Carol, right?
Not at all, actually.
You have to prove that.
And voila.
And there they are.
Ooh.
Notice the zeros. And we did that by selecting the default date as N in the zeros.
So
But-
then if the default date is set to N, then every time it adds a record, it will just leave it as zeros. What would happen if the default date was set to Y?
It would actually put in the date that they were added to the list.
So today's date.
Or
And
today's
Carol
date,
still
yes.
has a date, so it left the record that was in there alone.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
So you could add a number of people to the list, and it will still leave who's already on the list.
So if I have
Alone.
something, if we get back to our scenario of adding a field to the database, anytime new members come into the association, I simply need to go in and rerun the same merge, and I can add this field to their new records, or to their records, and have the appropriate status and default it to the appropriate date.
Exactly.
Correct.
Nice and easy, isn't it?
Yeah. So now we're all set, really, because as the people come in, we can go ahead and indicate the date that they've given us the information and be on our way.
Just be in modified mode, enter the date, and escape out. And you can do it right from the member query form as well,
That's right.
if you guys remember from last session. Okay, so that's basically how you perform the merge and auto-populate a large number of people to the list.
That's almost seemed too easy.
Now, just a reminder, once a list is created, you can use all the usual reports, all the merges to pull data from your list. So in this scenario, now you've got a number of members on the list. Now you can pull out a merge for people that have not brought in their fingerprints, and you can actually send some type of correspondence saying, hey, buddy, bring in your fingerprints.
So we can manage the process.
Exactly.
Or we could print a report, or we could print a roster. Any one of those existing merge or list functions is now available to us.
Exactly. And we also, every merge module has the capability to add the list.
So in addition, we just use the member merge, but
Right.
we could have added people to the list based on giving a contribution, or giving a contribution over a certain amount, or having been in a committee, or having taken a certain class or a certain course. Any merge we could run, we could take that and put the information into a list.
I would say yes, 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 yes to all of those
Wow.
questions.
And
That's
yes.
pretty cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks,
So
Frank. I'm excited.
now let's talk about ListMaker and the IMS. Do they really work together? And the answer to that is yes. Now let's see how. We'll have our little guys take us there.
Yeah, I'm the one pulling the blocks, and Frank is pushing, and Diane is directing us.
There you go. Now let's see how ListMaker works with the IMS or Internet Member Services. So we're going to take a quick preview here. Okay, so now I've logged into Carol Barker's account. And now we have the main menu, and we're going to go ahead and hit personal information. Or we have timed out, since we did that a long time ago. But okay, now we're in Carol Barker's account. Let's go into personal information, and now this is her member profile. And you can see a quick blurb of her sales for anybody who's taking a look.
Excuse me, Frank. Can you widen that screen a little bit so we can see a little bit more?
Sure, yes.
Great,
definitely.
thanks.
There we go. That makes
So we're in Carol's profile, which is just a standard function in IMS. Okay, great.
And as we're going down, you can see where the lists show up on her profile. It's towards the bottom.
Wait, what lists?
Well-
in this case, we use field of business and languages, specialization, and email subscriptions.
Okay, so those are actually coming from lists.
Right.
Oh.
That's coming from ListMaker.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool.
You can see from the profile, she can add the item by clicking on this link and choosing, in this case, a language that she speaks, that she wants either...
So the members can go in and actually add this information themselves.
Exactly.
So we decide we want to track languages, we add a category, and now we send out an email blast to all of our members saying, please log in and indicate what specialized languages you know, or specializations, or who knows what.
Right.
And they can actually go in and do it for us. We don't have to enter the information for them.
That's right. They don't have to enter the information. Just the members can do that. And that's very useful because another area of the IMS that you can use, and don't mind this is a demo site, so we do not have a certificate for it, is we're going to go to the search page, and this is just your normal member search page with the last name, first name. But look at the bottom. We have languages and specialization. So this can be for prospective clients that are looking for people, in this case, that maybe speak Spanish. So I'm going to select that, hit submit, and now we have 2 people that speak Spanish within our database. And Carol Barker is on there, as you saw on her member profile, that she had selected that she could do that. So if, let's say, a prospective client wants to click on that, they get a nice quick sales blurb here at the top from Carol, and they have all her contact information that prospective client could contact her, whether it's be phone number, email, and so forth. So again,
Nice.
very powerful tool.
So that's all
Jeez.
coming from lists. So then the big question is, how do we do that?
Exactly. So let's go. Well, let's take a look here. So
Let's take a look at Magic and see how this is done. We're going to look at how we put the information into Magic using the category and code setup form, and how it affects the Internet Member Services.
okay, so let's go into Magic. So
And
we're
we're
going to
gonna-
go to Managers, Membership, and ListMaker Setup Form.
Category and code setup. And then Frank's going to open up the IMS so you can see it side by side with Magic. And we can see how the changes that are made on IMS or in Magic affect one another immediately.
So we're going to go into Carol's member profile.
Right. And the first section we're going to look at is the categories section in list category code and setup form. In that categories portion of the form, you'll see an IMS status field. As soon as we get the proper language selected here.
There we
be
go.
good. Okay.
Thank you.
So under the IMS status field right now it is set to A for active. And because of that, we can see that sort of a tan bar right next to where Frank is that says languages, because that is active. If we change it to inactive, that section will go away. And we're going to demonstrate that for you right now. I'm going to change it to inactive. Pull the IMS back up again and refresh it. Scroll back to the bottom, and you will no longer see languages as an option for the member to add themselves to. So I'm going to change it back to active and point out the next field, which is the IMS search field. Now, Frank just showed you how you can search for a member on IMS using ListMaker. And if we make that inactive, then even though the list is visible for the member to add themselves to, you won't be able to search for that portion of the criteria on IMS.
So let's go to the search page. And now you can see language.
Language is no
gone.
longer
It's
there.
gone. So if we make it active again,
Oh,
or
I'm sorry. Diane, did you explain why it's a P? What that means?
I did not. In fact, inactive means it's an inactive status, obviously. I is for inactive. P means that this list is viewable or searchable to a public person or a member. And M would be for members only. So you can designate.
So there's three options. I, meaning it won't show up on the search at all.
Right?
M, meaning somebody who is an active member will see that particular field. And then P, meaning anybody, whether they're anybody with a login to IMS, will be able to see that.
That's right.
And in fact, the search itself is one of the features that works independent of a login, and you can put on your website independently. So that P function means that really any member of the public would be able to see this.
That's a good point. That's right. Now let's go down to the code section where we can actually choose which specific languages will be searchable on IMS.
That's a good one. Thanks, Dan. Because I was kind of wondering, Frank, can you go back to the IMS screen just for a second and click on the languages? Because I was curious. There's only 3 things showing up there:
Right.
Afrikaans, French, and Spanish.
And there are way more than that on our code selection.
Yeah,
there.
we've got lots of code. So why
Right.
are those 3 the only ones showing up?
So again, it comes down to the status setting for Internet Member Services. If the status is A for active, then that will be a searchable language. And if we were to change that status, that search field, not the status field, correction, to inactive, then we won't be able to search for that language.
Okay, so that way, when I'm presenting the languages to my members, for them to indicate which ones they actually can speak, I could show them everything.
Right?
But when I present the search to other members of the public to find people who speak a language, I can limit it to just those where there actually is somebody who speaks it.
That's right.
Okay,
Very useful.
great. That's handy.
So we'll demonstrate that for you by changing that search value to I for inactive.
I think you want to do
Yeah,
Afrikaans. There we go.
And go back to Member Services, refresh our screen. And
it's gone.
We'll no longer see that language option.
Great.
So as you can see by changing the settings in the category and code setup, it affects Magic and the IMS at the same time immediately. You can also change it back, and now it's visible again.
And that's our basic setup for the IMS working with the list maker. But remember,
What happens on IMS does not stay on IMS. Important to remember.
yes, so again, if you make a change in Magic, it should show up in real time on the IMS and vice versa. So if a member makes a change, you should see it in your Magic software.
So in other words, it's not sort of 2 sets of data, what exists in IMS and what exists in Magic. It's the same data.
Right.
It's the exact
So
same data.
The member changes it, boom, you're going to see it in Magic,
Exactly.
and vice versa.
It's a great way to keep track.
Great. Excellent.
So let's summarize. We talked about reviewing what we talked about last week or last session. We also went into the merge and how we auto-populate a large group of members and automatically add them to a list maker. or a list. And then also we talked about IMS, or the Internet Member Services, and how that works in congruent with ListMaker. We talked about the setup, the input, the output, and so forth. Now it's time for our questions and answers section. So give us 1 second here as we take a look. Here, I'm going to... Oh, it's not going to work. I think we
Okay, yeah, give us a moment while we take a look at questions, and we've got quite a few. And by the way, regarding the questions, what we'll do is if it's a question we can answer fairly easily and doesn't require our going into a lengthy description, we'll go ahead and answer it. If it's a longer one, we'll call you back personally and give you an answer, or potentially set it up for a more comprehensive answer in a future webinar. Okay. All right, well, we have one question, which is the date field you are referring to a choice in the 928.13 version? We're in 928.11 and don't see it. Well, actually, the date field has been in ListMaker for years and years and years, and I'm not sure where you're not seeing it, but it actually has been around for ages. So if you go into, for example, the list by member, or by list, that one will work. You'll see, if we focus down on the members on the list, that the comment, the status, the date, and the amount are standard features that have been a part of ListMaker for ages. And in terms of IMS, those individual fields, oh, and I just remembered something that we didn't actually talk about. So you brought up a good point. Frank, can you go back to the setup? Because when we were in IMS, which fields show up is actually something you can configure. So we're going to point your attention here. Go back to, let's go to languages. On the category on the top row, we talked about the IMS status and the IMS search. But in addition, right next to that, you'll see 4 columns that say Allow IMS Access. These 4 columns determine what the member can actually see in IMS. So in the case of languages, we gave them access to comment, but because status, date, and amount really didn't apply to whether or not they spoke a language, they were turned off, and therefore they did not appear in IMS. That may be, if you're not seeing something, maybe it's in IMS, maybe because it's not turned on there. And that is one of the configurable items. And there are, by the way, other features. We're just doing a summary here because there's actually a lot more detail we could go into, but we realize we have certain time constraints, so we're trying to stick to the basics.
But if you have any questions when you're trying to work on something on your system, please give our support a call. We'd be glad to help you out.
Okay. We have another good question, which is, can the list be on IMS and not searchable? Absolutely. In fact, that's why we have the 2 separate columns. The one that says IMS status means it will show up in the member profile. So if it's set to A there, the member will see it. If you don't want it to show up in a search, you simply, over in the next column, the one that says IMS search, leave it an I, and it will not show up there. So you could have 10 different things the members can enter, and they could have absolutely nothing to do with the search. That was a good question. We're getting lots of questions. Okay. Okay, so here's another question, which is, if you change the status to P for public, how does the general public see it in IMS, since they don't have a login or password as a regular Realtor member? And what you may not know is that search function works within the login portion of IMS, but it can also be set up as an independent link on your website. And we have an IMS configuration and setup document that we can, customization, thank you, that we can send you that explains how to do that. So that search can be something that the public uses that does not require any kind of login. And that status of P would refer to that type of user. Okay, give us a moment, take a look at some more questions, see if we can get some other nice clean ones. These are really good so far. Okay, well, here's a fairly a good basic one, which is, how do agents log on to IMS? Do the staff need to create their logins and passwords? For detailed explanation of that, I would advise you call support, but the simple answer is access to IMS is controlled via the IMS login and password, which you have access to in Magic. And yes, you could, if they don't have a login and password, then no, they can't log in. However, if you've never used Internet Member Service before, or if you have a lot of values that don't have anything there initially, contact us because we can assist you in establishing some initial values. Typically, when a customer is coming up on Internet Member Services, we will initially populate that value for you, set it to something that the member already knows, and also set a flag that requires them to change it after they've logged in. So that's part of the just general Internet Member Services management. Again, call support and they can help you with that.
And that's set up in the member record, correct?
That's right. That's right. Oh, here's a great one. It is, if I choose to let members add themselves to a list such as languages or field of business, do I need to do anything else to ensure that the information gets transmitted to NAR? Well, we didn't actually even talk about the fact that this information can get transmitted to NAR. And on the screen right now, you can see that Frank is highlighting the fact that this particular list is owned by NRDS, NERDS. And as a matter of fact, the data exchange programs automatically look at a particular set of lists and include this information in the demographics that gets sent to NAR. And you'll find a large number of lists already on your system that are standard, and any activity on those lists will end up being sent to NAR as part of your regular data exchange. That's a very good question. Okay, I think we're coming up on our half-hour magic limit here, so we've got some other good questions here. Actually, I'm seeing if I've got one more. Okay, yeah, there's some other good questions, but I think what we'll do is call you back individually on them. And it's also a little bit of a challenge getting through them quickly and giving you concise answers. So if we had a simple question out there we missed, I apologize, but I promise we will get back on every one of them. I think this will probably complete the general information about this session of ListMaker. Frank?
Right, and to view past and future webinars, and this is Diane, and
Oh,
to register for upcoming
Sound
webinars,
different, Frank.
please visit our website at www.rapatoni.com. Look for support, magic webinars, and training videos, and you'll see a list of past webinars that you can view over and over again, and you'll see also upcoming webinars you can register for.
And speaking of upcoming webinars, coming soon, an advanced application of ListMaker. This is a quick tease illustration of what we are going to show you in the next session.
Yeah, and excuse me, Frank, what you may not realize and what this whole advanced session that we're going to be dealing with next time has to do with using ListMaker to do searches across multiple parts of the system. So what do we mean by that? Go ahead, Frank.
Well, for instance, who has a GRA designation? You can run a merge like we showed you through the designation merge and select the people that have a GRI.
Okay, that's great.
So-
You know how to do that.
And then now you can do a merge of who did not contribute to RPAC last year.
So we'd use the non-contributor merge and find the people who didn't contribute. Okay.
Exactly.
So that's one list. I know how to do that. Great.
So now,
Nothing new here.
But did you know that you can combine the two? Who has a GRI designation and did not contribute to RPAC last year?
Well, I got to write that down on a piece of paper to do it, don't I?
Not at all.
Okay, but I got to wait till next week to find out.
That's right.
In 2 weeks, actually.
2 weeks.
June
2 weeks.
22nd.
Thank you.
We will see you then. We want to thank you, like we said, June 22nd, ListMaker, the advanced application, where we'll be guiding you in creating complex searches and creating additional fields involving multiple modules within your Magic system.
That's right. So for all of us, we want to thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you in 2 weeks. Till then, take care and have a great day.
Thank you.